1,703 days ago, I made the decision to leave my job and go all in on this online dropshipping thing that ended up changing my life. Since then, I've gotten to the point where just my Etsy dropshipping businesses make me a few $100,000 a year in profit by the age of 24, which is wild because 4.5 years ago, things were not exactly going my way. My first job paid me $8.30 an hour. I was raised by a single mother, and I had absolutely nobody successful, no business owners in my life to look to or get advice from. So today, I want to share with you the good and the bad decisions that I made to grow my Etsy dropshipping business to millions of dollars in revenue over the last 56 months, so that maybe you can achieve similar success in your own life in hopefully much less time than it took me. This is what can happen when effort meets a golden opportunity. And look, after I fully committed to doing what works, it only took me about 8 months before I got to 6 figures in profit. And while that $10,000 per month mark has been sort of turned into a meme, making that amount of money is what I needed to do to prove to myself that I could be successful, take care of the people around me, and prove to everyone who doubted me or clowned on me during my come up that they were wrong. And I never would have made it my first $10,000 online if I hadn't made my first correct decision on what I would consider to be day number 1, which was starting my business. For the beginners out there, I'm talking to you. When I was 17 years old, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and learned that in order to be truly financially free, I had to become self-employed and a business owner. This was when I subconsciously made the decision that I'd be a business owner. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew I needed to do it. Now, you might feel the same way I felt throughout my teenage years before I had any success when I was watching all of these videos about making money online and starting businesses and dropshipping, and I finally gave it a shot for myself. Now, I realize that not many people get past this point because they think that they need more information or that it's going to be a waste of time if it doesn't work out. But that's when it hit me. Because if I never got started, I'd never reach my goals, and everyone who I felt like was against me or made fun of me for wanting a better life would have been right. So I got started. Once I decided that dropshipping would be the best business for me because it offered the high income potential, time and location freedom, and the whole dream life, I started opening shops and trying to sell all sorts of products. I tried selling shoe covers, double-sided super strength tape, ice scrapers, backpacks, posture correctors, pet beds, and after several failed stores and absolutely zero sales, I was ready to give up. I felt like I had been baited. I felt like this whole online business thing was a scam, even though logically, I could see how products were being sold online. And then I kind of remembered that I didn't have many options. I had to figure something out because it was either continue drifting through life or at least try to take it into my own hands. About 2 months in, I was down a few $100s from trying all of my business ideas. And so I took a job at Starbucks to make some of that money back. And while I was sitting in the back of that Starbucks after just being hired, still in training to become a certified barista, is when I made my first online sale ever. It was for a clear milk box style water bottle, and it had taken me 60 days and hundreds of dollars to make that first sale online, and a lot of people would have given up way before then. It literally gave me chills, and somehow in that moment, I didn't know how, but I knew that I was going to be successful with dropshipping. Even though this was the tiniest success, I knew that if I could sell one item, I could sell a lot more. I quit Starbucks that same week and went back to the drawing board. Now, because my first sale was for such a loss after all of the marketing and Shopify expenses, I realized that I needed a more sustainable option. I was down hundreds of dollars with no profit, paying influencers to promote products, running ads on Facebook and Instagram, opening new Shopify shops each time one failed. It all cost too much money for the amount that I had to start out with. I needed to be able to open and run my business for less than maybe $100, and the traditional model wouldn't really let me do that. Plus, I didn't want a business built on impulse TikTok shoppers. I wanted recurring revenue that would come in every single month. Not to mention that the traditional dropshipping products can usually be bought on Amazon. And nowadays, customers are usually smart enough to check there before ordering off of a random website that they've never heard of. That's when it all dawned on me. Why don't these dropshippers sell on a platform where customers are already coming to shop? Really just marketplace platforms like Amazon and Etsy? Now, Amazon has a lot of hoops you have to jump through before you can start selling, but Etsy doesn't. I wondered why the online gurus and the people I was following weren't talking about this. So at this point, I've been trying to get this whole business thing going for about 6 months, and that's when I made my second best decision to switch from traditional to Etsy dropshipping. No Shopify subscription, no paid advertising, and instead you get an easy setup, recurring revenue on your best-selling listings, the option to sell digital and dropshipped products. You're building on top of Etsy's brand and reputation, and you get to take advantage of all of the free traffic that they drive to the site. It all seemed almost too good to be true. The only thing I could think of was that the people shopping on Etsy mostly just wanted clay pots and jewelry. But despite that thought, I opened up my shop and started posting a few products for sale. Now, I posted real estate buyer and seller guides, which I had made for myself because I had just gotten into real estate at the time. After I sort of forgot about them for a few days until I made my first ever Etsy sale for $5.21. This time, since I had sold it on Etsy using their organic traffic, it was almost all profit. Now, even though this was such a small amount of profit, it was one of the richest moments of my life. I had never made an actual profit from selling stuff online before. It was always for a severe loss after all of the ads and other costs. This was my second enlightenment moment when I almost knew that I was going to make this Etsy dropshipping thing work. So I logged back into my Etsy account and started planning out how I was going to take over the platform. During the pandemic, I started dropshipping print-on-demand face masks with memes on them, and that was my first winning product, but it was clearly just a trend. Then I started selling t-shirts and mugs, also with memes on them, and they all looked terrible. But even though all of my listings looked awful, I kept posting them for sale, and that's what mattered. After dropshipping on Etsy for about 4 months, I was profitable, having made a few $1,000s, but it wasn't until I got fully dialed in until I found my first evergreen best-selling product. I noticed a lot of big shops on Etsy selling map posters with specific locations on them, so I thought I might be able to do something similar and post maps on mugs and see if I could get those to sell. So I launched the mug shop. Now, the mugs were the product that eventually got me to the $10,000 per month profit range after about 8 more months, at about 14 months in. Specifically, the custom map mugs absolutely took off and I was selling dozens of them a day. It felt like all of the work led up to an overnight success. With all of the new sales coming in, I finally felt like that feeling I had had months before was validated. At this point, my logical brain agreed with that intuitive feeling that I was going to make this work. And after nearly a year of hopping between businesses and making less than $30,000, I was on track to making a lot more. This is when things really started to take off for me. I wanted to open another shop and sell even more items. And I actually opened a few more shops all at the same time and then quickly realized that I needed to focus on one at a time. I started to notice that one of the most competitive product types on Etsy was actually not pottery or cursive Bible verse signs, but it was actually t-shirts and apparel. At first, I didn't want to sell in one of the most competitive spaces, but then I realized that that's where all the customers were. Some shops that were selling apparel and t-shirts were making hundreds of thousands of sales and bringing in tens of millions of dollars. So I thought that if I could tap into that market, I might be able to make a lot of money too. These mega apparel shops had a few simple things in common. They all had great product images, even if the designs on the products weren't the best. They all had keyword-packed SEO-optimized titles, and most importantly, they had a lot of listings, even if some of those listings were just iterations of the same product in different styles. 4 months after my mug shop took off, I made a full pivot from only selling mugs in one shop to owning multiple shops and starting to focus on selling apparel. At this point, I knew what I had to do, but I also had a new problem. See, I didn't know what to post, and even if I did, I didn't know how to make it. I hadn't felt this stuck since I had gotten started. I started to study what successful shops, I'm talking the 7- and 8-figure shops did, and I started noticing those patterns. I realized that all I had to do was model what was already working and put my own unique spin on it. Plus, while some of the best sellers were highly complex designs, many of them were not. They were simple enough that I thought I could definitely recreate them. As simple as it sounds, it took me over 18 months and hundreds of dollars to learn these lessons. I took this and applied it to my shops. I started making as many listings as possible, and I was able to afford it since each listing only costs 20 cents, and I was making back all of the fees as I was posting more and more listings. I was taking the ideas that were working in other shops and using them in my own business. At around 18 months in, I went on a listing marathon for about 60 days where I nonstop posted products for sale in my shops, and within just a couple of months, I doubled and tripled my income, easily passing my mug shop in revenue and profit. The more that I kept doing what was working, the more money I made, and it literally came down to just doing the work even when I didn't want to. The main key I learned here was, like how making and running more ads will get you more sales in traditional dropshipping, making and posting more listings on Etsy will make you more money with Etsy dropshipping. And since learning this, I've used the same strategy with several shops that I've opened, and it continues to be true. If you look at any top performing shops, they have great images, Etsy algorithm optimization, and a lot of listings. Now, around day 600, or about 20 months in, I really felt like I had something figured out and I was making consistent money. I was getting sales every day and I just kept posting more and more listings for sale. The more I would post, the more my shops would grow. But that still leaves over 1,000 days. And the truth of it is that once I figured out what works, I didn't have to do anything else too crazy. I just kept following the same process until I got to the point where I wanted to branch out and work on other businesses. That's the true beauty of Etsy dropshipping, because once you've built up the business, you can use your time to focus on whatever else you want to do. It took me 2 months to make my first sale online, 4 months to make the switch to Etsy, 8 months of minimal progress before making $10,000 a month in profit, and then 4 more months to truly take over the Etsy algorithm and scale to the point where I'm making more than doctors and lawyers from my bedroom on a marketplace that's made for pottery, weddings, and jewelry. If I would have started on Etsy to begin with and followed the simple method that I teach in this video, I would have gotten to where I am today in less than half the time. Etsy dropshipping is maybe the best online business that you could try out without having all of the financial risk. So if you're interested, you can go watch this video now and I'll see you over there. And remember, you could be one listing away from changing your life forever.